Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome at this masterclass about wood, organized by the Interreg project called Wanderful.stream. Hello, my name is Sara Gilissen. I work for UCLL, University of Applied Science in Diepenbeek, and we are project coordinator of this project. About the program of this afternoon, I will give a short introduction to the project Wanderful.stream in just a few minutes. After my introduction, Tom Janssen, my colleague who is technology expert and business developer in this project, will give us an update on the approaches of circular wood in the region. After his presentation, Lasse Six of Unilin will explain the practices of their company, one of the biggest companies in Belgium working with recycling of wood. And after this, Rik Ruigrok from Herso will explain his refurbishment of used wood. So let's start. Also, after these presentations, we have a Q&A section. So if you have questions during the presentation, you can already submit them by using the Q&A tool in this Zoom meeting. And we will surely address all the presenters with your questions, and you will be able to have some interaction and discussion after the presentations. So I will briefly introduce the Wanderful.stream project, which is an Interreg Euregio Maas-Rijn project. It's involving 8 partners and 4 regions. So the included regions are the province of Liège, the region of Aachen, and Limburg in Belgium and Limburg in the Netherlands. Together with all these partners, I welcome you at this masterclass. What is this project about? We want to help SMEs in the U region to become more circular. So the waste streams or residual streams in the companies can lead to new products or services, and we will help SMEs to find out and develop prototypes of the residual streams. We do this in collaboration with a multidisciplinary team, so we include designers, technology experts, and business developers to cover the whole value chain of the circular products. And in this short video, this will be explained a little bit more.
Makers, we all make quality products. From a raw material to an end product, the whole production chain works as efficiently as possible. In a circular economy, we want to work on smarter chains. To do so, reuse is essential, recycling raw materials as well as seeing the value in waste streams. Your company's waste might become a resource for a whole new product. Therefore, we present Wanderful.stream, an Interreg project in the Meuse-Rhine-Euro region, which allows us to get to know companies and their waste streams and map them out, because all these materials can spark new ideas. Wanderful.stream connects small and medium-sized companies with designers, engineers, and business developers in order to turn waste products into new materials and applications. Something that is useless to you becomes useful again, and it's win-win for everyone. Although your waste flow may seem like a trivial matter, it could matter to others. Let's work together. Visit www.wanderful.stream for more information. Makers.
So how can you participate? We are looking at this moment for SMEs to fill in our survey to start working together with us in this project. How does it work? So on the website, you can find a very short survey, easy to fill in. After filling in this survey, one of the team members will contact you to do a more in-depth need analysis to see what are the waste streams in your company and maybe find out already what kind of ideas you have yourself. From out of all these needs analysis, we will select some challenges, and these will be taken into boot camps. In the boot camp, multidisciplinary teams will work for 3 days, and they will come up with innovative concepts about these residual streams and how they could be used. Out of these concepts, we select the most innovative one, the most promising one, and these go into the innovation tracks. And the output of these innovation tracks are these circular prototypes that we are aiming for in this project. Now, what is an innovation track? We start from the SME, the question they have, what is the residual stream and how can we better use it and make sure it doesn't go into landfill and cost you a lot of money. We add external experts from technology, from design and from business to co-create together with the SME in this innovation track a new prototype out of the residual stream. These external experts are worth €20,000, and this is offered by the project. This is important to know. So we know that SMEs, small, medium enterprises, often do not have the resources to do innovation themselves, although they might have some very good ideas. They simply don't have the time or the staff or the other resources necessary to develop these ideas. And that's why this project is there and helping SMEs to come up with the expertise and help you develop these innovative ideas. Where are we at the moment? We are developing these innovation tracks in 2 cycles. Each innovation track is taking 9 months. And at the moment, we started the first innovation track, and the second one is also starting up. So in January, we had 10 innovation tracks starting, and they will end around November this year. At this moment, we are looking for SMEs for the second innovation tracks. So we're doing the survey, the needs analysis. By August, we will make a selection. And in October, the first boot camps will be held so that we can start with the new innovation tracks in December, January, and then of next year. So we had 10 starting this year, and we are looking for 14 more interesting cases for the coming year. So you can join us today. The sooner the better. You fill in the survey, we can start contacting you and see how we can work together. Not only SMEs can join us with waste streams, but we are also building up a network of all stakeholders concerning circular economy in this region. If you are an expert in design or business development or technology, or you work in a knowledge institution, you can join this network by registering on our website. There is a mapping tool, and throughout this mapping tool, you can contact other companies or experts and start your own collaboration in circular economy. So join the network, fill in the mapping tool, or contact us if you have any more questions. We are looking forward to work with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's switch on. Okay. In this presentation, I would like to give you an overview of the current situation in the wood processing sector with regards to the circular economy. This is part of a series of thematic publications and masterclasses on different types of waste streams. It is not the intention. It is not the intention to be all-encompassing. I am not the big expert here, but to be a source of inspiration for all SMEs, designers, technologists, and users with an interest in the wood sector. Okay. Now, what is wood? It is a natural and completely renewable resource. Of course, this is under the assumption that it is sourced from a sustainable managed forest. Each part of the tree can be harvested from the root to the smallest branches, and this can be used in different applications. Also, the production and processing cycle of wood has typically low impact on the environment. Wood can also be recycled into numerous new products and formats, and at the end of its useful life, it can be used as a renewable carbon-neutral energy source. So timber is increasingly proving itself as one of the prime materials on which to base bioeconomic and circular economic models. Now, wood is also a key carbon store. So each cubic meter of wood that is grown in a forest will capture about 1 ton of CO2, and it will sequester this from the atmosphere. At the same time, wood products save on man-made emissions. They are substituting more energy-intensive materials and substances, including fossil fuels in energy generation, but also steel, concrete, aluminium, and plastics across a range of areas in manufacturing and construction. And R&D is ongoing to even develop more products that can be replaced by wood-based products. Now, this is a forest map of Europe in 2011. So everything in green here are forests. And you can see that at this moment, about 43% of the land is covered by forests in the European Union. Good to know is that these forests have grown about 9% in area over the last 25 years. And annually, around 63% of the timber growth is harvested. So not everything that grows every year is actually harvested. 25% of the forests are set aside as ecological reserve. And good to know also is that 90% of the European wood consumption is actually supplied from European forests. And this is important because in Europe, sustainable forest management is the standard. And this is not the case in many other countries. Also, forestry sector, the wood sector employs about 3 million people in Europe as well. Now here you can see a representation of the wood value chain. It starts, of course, with the forest. The wood is harvested. The logs are used in sawmills, wood mills. Some other parts are used in wood-based panel production. And these products of these two are used in lots of different applications like construction and furniture. At the end of life, this will produce post-consumer waste, which is either sorted into materials that are recycled into new products, wood-based products, or they are used for renewable energy. So circular economy is actually in a big part already embedded in the wood sector. So we can call this already, let's say, a recycling economy. Of course, to develop into a circular economy, there's still some steps to be taken. Wood waste can be divided into two big sections. The first one is primary wood waste. This is waste from wood processing companies like sawmills, carpenters, and furniture producers. And second, you have the post-consumer wood waste. This is waste from finished wooden products, both originating from households, but also from industry, for example, from construction and from furniture industry. This post-consumer waste is also subcategorized into three categories, namely class A wood as waste. This is untreated wood, like, for example, pallets, crates, different blocks, mill cuttings, wood dust, etc. You have the B category. This is non-contaminated but treated wood waste. So, for example, wood-based panels fall in this category, but also everything that is painted, coated, and varnished. And then you have the C category. This is actually contaminated and treated wood waste. So these are, for example, train sleepers, but also chemically treated wood. Now, chemically treated wood is sometimes chemically treated to last as long as possible. However, because of these chemicals, this C-class cannot be recovered for recycling. And this is always directed towards energy recovery. Now, in Flanders, for example, A-class wood, there are regulations that state that A-class wood cannot be used for energy recovery and has to be recycled unless it is used internally by the wood processors for their internal energy production. In the Netherlands, it's a bit different. I think up to 15% of Class A wood can be used in energy recuperation. Now, how is this sector divided into different subsectors? Here you see a representation of the relative importance of these subsectors in Europe. You have the sawmilling, that's 28%. You have the wood-based panel producers, that's 18%. Also big are the builders, that's carpenters, but also construction and furniture producers, that's 35%. And then you have the packaging, the wooden containers, that makes up 9%. These are the main ones. Similar to this is a situation in Flanders, in Belgium, in 2020. And this is revenue-based. Here, wood-based plate producers make up 31%, furniture 39%, construction 18%, packaging 8%, and other 4%. Now, let's have a look at them individually. First, maybe the sawmills. So they use, of course, the wood harvested from the forest, so tree trunks. That can be softwood and hardwood. And they make products of solid wood bases. These can be used in construction, flooring, furniture, packaging, veneer, etc. Maybe first a remark, 90% of the waste produced by the wood processing sector is wood or wood-based. So I only want to focus on this part because it's the biggest part. So in terms of wood waste, they have, this sector has, subsector has shavings, wood dust, sawdust, cutting waste, and bark. But almost everything of this is recuperated into either energy recovery, internally, but also externally, either bedding for animals. It can also be incorporated in wood-based panel production. Bark can be recuperated into mulch, compost, soil improvers, but also into pellet production for the pellet stoves. Then you have the subsector of the wood-based panel producers. They use wood of different sources. First, roundwood, but then roundwood that is not suited for sawmilling. So this could be crooked trees that cannot be used, or branches of small diameter, things like this. They also use primary wood waste, so wood waste from sawmills and wood processing. And lastly, also post-consumer waste, so class A and B. And this is very important. And over the last couple of decades, this usage of post-consumer waste, you can see it on the right, in Flanders, has almost doubled in the last 2 decades. So this is a very positive evolution. What kind of products do they make? And Unilin will talk about this more later on. Of course, chipboards, but also oriented strand boards, so the big chips that they use. Then the smaller fibers are used in fiber boards like MDF, but also hardboard and softboard materials. And you have the plywood. Plywood is actually veneer that is glued together into multiple layers. These panels are actually more and more used in different applications like construction, siding and flooring, furniture, and packaging. And this evolution is going up, that it's used more and more. Wood waste produced by this subsector is mainly bark cutting waste, wood dust, and leftovers, but it is used almost 100% internally, reused into new panels, production of new panels, or reused for energy or heat recovery to use in their own processes. Okay, These solid wood and wood-based panels are mainly used in construction and furniture. 70% of all wood products goes towards this direction, construction and furniture. What kind of things are made? Everyone knows this. Construction, it's for doors, windows, floors, trusses, laminated or not, timber frames, etc. Furniture can be everything from kitchens, bathrooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, offices, seats, etc. What kind of waste do they produce? This is mainly cutting waste, but also wood dust that is produced. And this usually ends up either for internal use for energy recovery or as post-consumer waste. Another subsector is the packaging industry. So the sources they use is solid wood, but also wood-based panels, and extra also the G-blocks. G-blocks are a recent development, a new application. This is actually a pallet spacing block, which is in between the boards. You can see it here on the right, but which is made out of post-consumer waste. And possible applications for this packaging are pallets, of course, but also crates of different kinds and barrels as well. They have the same kind of waste as the previous one, so cutting waste and wood dust with similar applications. And then the last one are the other waste wood-based products. So these can be anything from wooden frames, music instruments, playground equipment, kitchen utensils, but also writing utensils. And they have the same type of wood waste with the same type of applications. Now here you can see a bit an overview of a cycle of wood side streams in Flanders of 2014, a bit of a summary. I will not go into detail. This is just for your information. These slides will also be shared afterwards, so you can have a closer look. Now, this is a representation of the wood cascade. So, of course, first it starts with the trees. The first material is solid wood and veneer. Then down the line, it could be plywood. This is veneer strips glued together. Further down the line, chips and fibers can be reused into chipboard and fiber boards. And a significant portion of this can be recycled. Then it goes down to insulation boards. And finally, if nothing else can be done with it, it can be used for energy recovery as a carbon neutral energy source. Now, to keep the wood resource in the value chain as long as possible, not only to preserve the limited resource, but also to keep the CO2 captured in materials and not going to the atmosphere. In 2016, in the European Union, more than 50% of the overall potential of post-consumer wood was actually recovered and recycled. So this is already very positive. Of course, this means that still there is 50% more that is not recovered yet. Now, how can we keep wood in this value chain even more? Well, first of all, prevention. We have to prevent the loss of wood by designing materials and buildings in such a way that they can either last longer and are easier to maintain, or they are easier to reuse, to repair, or to recycle. So, for example, that they are made to be modular and easy to deconstruct, that when you break down a building, you can easily take down the parts and you reuse them. Second, of course, we have to stimulate also reuse of these wooden products. And this can be done by either promoting secondhand use, for example, via thrift store for furniture, also by promoting repair and refurbishment, by reusing furniture parts into new furniture or decoration, and also by promoting the remanufacturing and repurposing of wooden construction materials. But to do this, we also need to improve the selective collection and pre-sorting of reusable wood. For example, during demolition, if we can already take out at the source reusable materials, then we don't have to sort them afterwards. Okay, some examples from the EMR. Herso, a company from Holland, they will give an inspirational talk after me, afterwards. Everyone knows, of course, the Europallet system. This is a standardized pallet that has been introduced a couple of decades ago, which is very solid, can be repaired. There is a take-back system, so it can be reused a lot. And so it is a very good system for reuse. More and more also different kinds of material hubs are arising. For example, in Leuven, building material is recuperated and put in a material database, of which you can see more info here. Of course, if materials cannot be reused, we have to put our efforts into recycling. We can increase the recycling options of wood by, for example, maximizing the separate collection of Class A and B type post-consumer waste, because A type is always recyclable. We can optimize the after sorting of B class wood to separate out recyclable from non-recyclable material. We can further increase the usage of B wood in panel applications and further increase the percentage of B wood that can be incorporated. And we have to, of course, develop new technologies and new applications to increase recyclable B fraction. So what is non-recyclable today can be recyclable tomorrow, maybe. But we have to develop new technologies to do this. And one way, besides mechanical recycling, for example, is chemical recycling of the molecules included in this. These could be interesting building blocks in the chemical industry. Examples of these, well, Unilin will have an interesting talk about this later on. The G blocks, as I mentioned before, are an interesting one. Actenzorp is a new company that actually has developed a technology to recycle MDF plate material into biochar and active coal. And they will start up, I think, at the end of this year. There are also several projects going on in terms of chemical recycling. One on lignin, for example, the Lignovalue project, but also in Ghent from ArcelorMittal and Renewi, the Torero project. And if nothing can be done, the wood could still be used for energy recovery. But we have to make sure that we minimize the use of reusable or recyclable wood materials for energy recovery. We can only use this as a last resort for something that is non-recyclable. There are still some obstacles and challenges to overcome to do this. First of all, demolition. There is a lack of selective demolition. During demolition of a building, in general, most ends up in one skip, everything together. And then it has to be sorted afterwards, which leads to losses of reusable material. Also, the current collection at municipal collection centers, have a look at your own one in the neighborhood. Mostly they collect A and B class waste together, which is also an obstacle and has to be improved. Also at this moment, significant amounts of A and B waste are immediately directed towards energy recovery before they are even sorted. And also, of course, technological difficulties are still there to do the after sorting and cleaning of B-type materials because they are of mixed chemical and physical properties. They are very complex. For example, if different kinds of classes are attached together, but also because many of these wood-based panels contain, besides wood fibers or chips, also glues, additives, paints, coatings, protective foils. And this makes it much more complex to sort them and to clean them up for reuse and for recycling. Here you can see an overview of the post-consumer wood waste chain in the Netherlands in 2017 on the left here, but it is pretty similar in Belgium at the time. You see that of post-consumer waste, part of it immediately goes to energy recovery, so to burn in biomass plants. The rest is sorted, but then only 1/3 of it, for example, was at that time recycled into wood-based panels. and 2/3 was directed towards energy recovery. In Belgium at that time, we were doing a little bit better. I think it was 50-50. Now, the ambitions towards 2025 are the following. They want, first of all, to increase reuse by improving demolition. So to already remove reusable materials, reusable wood, before it ends up in post-consumer waste. Then they want to sort everything before it goes to energy recovery, but they want to optimize the use in different applications like wood panel production, but also into new applications that are under development. Now, both Belgium and the Netherlands have made action plans for the following 5 years and have formulated some ambitions to make this sector even more circular, and I have summarized a few of them. So first of all, the ambition is to improve demolition with reuse and recycling in mind. The ambition is also that post-consumer waste needs to be sorted before any possible application in energy recovery. They also have the ambition to increase the percentage of recycled wood in wood panel production. In Flanders, for example, the ambition is by 2025 to have a minimum of 85%. Of course, also new applications have to be developed to recycle even more post-consumer wood waste, preferably applications that ensure long-time carbon storage, like, for example, these G blocks, but also, for example, chemical recycling. And in the European Union, for example, by 2030, the ambition is that an additional 50% of recyclable wood material is actually recycled. So today they're at 50%, they want to go to 75%. Okay, some remarks and questions on this. First of all, prices. Prices of solid wood are rising, and I guess this will likely stimulate reuse and also innovation and investments to achieve this. Also, building with wood is on the rise, and I believe this has to be promoted because it has such a positive impact towards long-term carbon capture. However, to reach the renewable energy goals, many governments, including the ones of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, have heavily invested in more biomass plants to expand their capacity to burn biomass for renewable energy. Now, what impact will this have on the sector and on wood waste supply and demand? On the right, you can see here the prognosis of supply and demand of post-consumer wood waste in Flanders after 2020. On the one hand, you see the demand from the recycling industry, and the demand here will be about 890,000 tons annually. On the other hand, you will have the demand from the biomass plants for energy recovery. 6 more of these plants are being built or are already in production in the coming 4 years, which will more than double their capacity in total to burn biomass. So their total demand will be 1.3 million tons. So totaling the demand up to 2.2 million tons. And then on the other side, you have the supply. And this has been pretty stable over the last few years. So supply of post-consumer wood waste in Flanders has always been recently 1.1 million tons. So it's not difficult to calculate. There will be a deficit of 1.1 million tons annually of wood waste if we want to fill in the entire demand. If you compare this to 2015, at that time, only 5 years ago, the supply was still higher than the demand. We also have to consider that biomass plants are heavily subsidized. Taken together with the demand-supply deficit, this raises some questions. First of all, will there be competition for post-consumer waste between recyclers? and energy recovery? Second, will this not undermine the efforts and investments to increase sorting towards recycling? And last, will this not put pressure on any type of innovation or investment towards new recycling applications like the chemical recycling? It will be a balancing act in the coming years to balance the goal of renewable energy targets and goals of making the wood sector even more circular. Interesting enough, 2 days ago, this was an article in Lasse Six, where Europeans filed a petition with the European Union to actually reduce stimulants and subsidies towards burning biomass, because they were concerned that valuable wood would be burned in these biomass plants. Okay, if you want to know more or want to get inspired more, please have a look at these websites and reports. And we also made a list of some inspirational examples from the EU region on different topics for your information. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom, for the very interesting introduction and for mentioning our company from time to time. I'm Lasse Six. I work in the sustainability team for Unilin. I'll just request control here. And as you already heard, Unilin is one of the wood waste processing companies and one of the panel producers in the region. Okay, so Unilin. We're quite a large company. We have about 5,000 employees spread out over about 20 production sites, mostly in Belgium, France, the Netherlands, also UK, Ireland, where we have some insulation plants, in Malaysia, where we have a parquet factory, in Russia, where we have a laminate factory, and in Brazil, where we also have a small laminate factory. So we produce floors. That's one of our 3 businesses, our 3 main businesses. These floors are sold under the Quickstep, Pergo, and Balterio brands. So these are laminate floors, parquet floors, and vinyl floors. Our second division is the insulation department, where we sell insulation materials under the Unilin and Extraterm brands. And finally, we have our panels division. And today I'm going to talk about the panels division as that's the most relevant here, because in our panels division, we make MDF and chip boards. So on the left, you see the medium density fiberboard panels. We also make HDF boards, which are very similar. And on the right, you see the chip boards. And we make these panels in many, many different variations. We have about 50 different types, which are sold with 200 different designs or simply as raw panels. And we do this for many different applications as well. So we have panels for interior applications like the coffee shop on the left, where you, for example, have the cabinets or the table or the wall cladding made from our panels. And we also make panels for construction applications, like in the wood skeleton building on the right, where we have our vapor block as a vapor block, of course, on the inside of the construction. So what's circular about wood? As you've already heard, wood is itself, of course, a circular resource. The trees capture CO2, we use it in our products, and end of life, when the wood gets burned, it goes back into the circle. But of course, this is only valid when we're talking about sustainably sourced wood. So typically you should choose FSC or PEFC certified wood to be sure that it's sustainable, or as Tom already said, if you source it in Europe, it's probably okay as well. When we look at our MDF boards, these are not based on recycled wood, but rather on recovered wood, which means that it's wood coming from other sectors or from forestry applications where they have certain wood streams like cutting waste or small trees that they are removing from the forest to make space for the best trees that they have, out of which they want to make solid wood products. And we use these recovered wood streams in our MDF production plant. At group level today, we recover about 2.4 million ton of wood. But much more interesting for this crowd, I think, are our chipboards, because these are based on actual post-consumer and post-industrial recycled waste wood. So about 90% of the wood that ends up in the boards is recycled, and the other 10% is recovered. And when we say recycled, we really mean coming from, for example, demolition sites, from container parks, from industries where they have worn out pallets, and so on. As such, we recycle about 900,000 tons of waste wood every year in our 2 factories in Belgium. And the recycling of waste wood, of course, starts with a size reduction. And that's the first step, where we cut all of these differently sized bits to smaller blocks, which we can subsequently purify. As already mentioned, we have A and B types waste wood. We also take B type, but of course this needs a lot of purification because it can contain plastics, stones, metals, sand, and so on. And we need to remove these to assure that we can create a high quality product and we don't destroy our own machinery. Once we've cleaned the waste wood, we move on to chipping. So we cut it into the small chips that we actually use inside our panels. These are dried, glued together, pressed, cut, passively cooled, sanded if needed, and finished further, depending on customer demands. So basically, we go from waste wood to panels that are used to create beautiful interiors like the ones on the right, which hopefully we can use much more this summer than last summer. But of course, that's not the end of the story. What do you do after use? Because if we're talking about the circular economy and so on, it's about adding more and more circles. Well, after use, we can do the opposite, because also chipboards can be recycled in our process. So they can come back to us and we can recycle them again, but we can't do so up to 100%. That would be detrimental for the quality of our panels, because then we'd have to add too much glue, and we'd rather have a glue board than a chipboard. So unfortunately, we can't do this endlessly, but up to 30% is no problem. So that means that we elongate wood's lifetime. You have the circle that I already showed, and we add additional circles. We take the waste wood from demolition, for example, and we use it again. It goes back to society. And we do this again and again. So the wood is used for much longer, and the captured CO2 is also stored for longer. So that's good for climate change. And it also means that we use fresh wood much more efficiently. So instead of burning the cutting waste, for example, from the massive wood industry, we give it a second life, you could say, in our products. And that means that we can make much more wooden products without cutting more trees, which is very important if we want to grow the wood sector in Europe, because there's simply a limited amount of trees, and it takes quite a long time to grow them. So if we want a rapid increase in the amount of wood that we use, we will have to look at recovering and recycling wood as much as possible. But unfortunately, of course, we can't recycle everything. The wood can be way too contaminated for our cleaning processes, or the particles can simply be too small, and then they don't have the same structural qualities in our panels, and we again have to add too much glue. So in that case, when we cannot recycle them, we produce renewable energy. And on a yearly basis, we incinerate about 700,000 tons of wood waste in our plants. And we do this in our 2 large biomass plants, ANS and ANU. ANS on top, which stands, by the way, for Aspiravi and Spano, because Aspiravi is the local energy producer with whom we have the joint venture here. It's a 50-50 joint venture. And Spano is our chipboard factory. And ANS produces renewable electricity to power our chipboard plant. ANU, Aspiravi and Unilin, produces electricity and heat for our Boospon chipboard factory, as well as heat for Agristo, which is a neighboring company. Those are our large biomass plants, of which we have 2 today, and we intend to build another one, but only to burn non-recyclable wood, of course, because we want to use the good quality wood ourselves in our panels. But on our sites, we also have smaller burners, where we incinerate, for example, wood dust coming from our saws or our sanding stations. And these small fractions we can't use in our panels. So we use them to, for example, dry our chips in the factories. And doing so, we save a lot of natural gas and other energy sources that we don't need instead. And thanks to these investments today at our largest size, we already use quite a lot of renewable energy. For example, our chipboard factories, Boospan and Spano, use around 70 and 90% renewable energy, so both electricity and heat are included. And at VL Salm and Bazay, we're at around 50 to 60% renewable energy today. But of course, it doesn't end there, and we also have plans to grow and to improve ourselves all the time. So in terms of circular economy and circularity, we're looking at producing MDF from waste wood as well. We're looking at recycling MDF, end of life. Both of these we already do with chipboards. We'd like to do that with MDF, but it's still challenging. We're looking into cradle-to-cradle certification and also using cradle-to-cradle as a compass in our sustainability efforts, because there's much more to circularity and especially to sustainability than simply using recycled feedstocks and recycling end-of-life waste, of course, and cradle-to-cradle provides a broader view to these issues. And we're also looking at reducing non-renewable ingredients. So we still use some glue, which is fossil-based. It's a standard chemical, urea formaldehyde, and we'd like to replace this in the future, but we'll see how we get there, because of course, it's also important that our customers can still afford our panels. At the same time, we're looking at climate change, of course, because this is a major issue for all of us, which means that we invest in efficiency all the time, obviously, but we're also looking into building more renewable energy plants. So a new one we'd like to build near VL Salm at our MDF factory there. And we're also looking into science-based targets. We're currently finalizing our strategy for the next 10 years, so hopefully you'll soon get communications from us about all of our new targets that we're finalizing right now. But for now, that's it. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A, and I'll happily answer them by the end of the session.
Dag allemaal, ik ben Rik. Ik woon in Loosbroek in Nederland en ik ben circulair meubelmaker. En dat wilde ik jullie eventjes laten zien. Wij betrekken ons hout van onder andere de milieustraten, maar ook van een sloperij als New Horizon. Dat is een circulaire sloper. En door middel van urban mining halen zij overal hout voor ons weg. Dat wordt verzameld en hier naartoe gebracht. Wij doen het hier met 7 man. We hebben bij het Leggen des Hels de afdeling die het hout verwerkt 14 man. En dan hebben we nog een afdeling die het staal voor ons, die maken de onderstellen. En er werken nog 5 mensen. En in de Milieustraat zelf staan 7 man die permanent voor ons allerlei materiaal uit de containers vissen en dat productie klaarmaken. In totaal verwerken wij een kleine 400 kub per jaar. En dat gaat op zeer korte termijn naar de 9.0. Dus dat betekent een heel ernstige vermindering van de productie. En ook het aantal mensen. Zeer waarschijnlijk gaan we richting de 100 man bij het Leggen des Hels. Overal in het bedrijf bij ons zie je stickers hangen. Ik zal hem even van dichtbij laten zien. Van FSC Recycled 100%. Al het afvalhout wat wij binnenkrijgen in ons bedrijf, dat wordt gefotografeerd, gedocumenteerd en uiteindelijk wordt daar een FSC-certificaat op losgelaten. Dat is het bewijs dat wij met echt afvalhout werken. En dat telt ook mee met bijvoorbeeld BREEAM-certificeringen van panden. Dat maakt ook dat we bijvoorbeeld aan de overheid mogen leveren. Maar dat moet wel heel streng gedocumenteerd worden. Vandaar dat wij ook de afspraak hebben gemaakt met FSC dat als we ook maar 1 ijslollyhoutje vinden in onze werkplaats, waarvan we niet kunnen vertellen waar het vandaan komt, dan mogen ze het van mij versnipperen, dat hele FSC. Dit is onze lak. En zoals je ziet staat er geen enkel symbool voor gevaar. En dat komt omdat deze lak bijna 50% plantaardig is. Er is geen uitstoot, geen gore dingen. Je krijgt er geen pukkels van of snel groeiend haar. En de bedoeling is natuurlijk ook dat wij uiteindelijk onze meubels terug gaan krijgen. Ja, een nadeel van een circulair bedrijf is natuurlijk ook dat je ongelooflijk veel meer werk hebt in verhouding met een gewone houtbewerker. Het voordeel daarentegen is dat je het hout allemaal gratis kunt meenemen. Want als je weet wat er weg wordt gegooid, is het onvoorstelbaar. Als je daartegen afweegt dat op dit moment aan de andere kant van de lijn de prijzen met wel 40% stijgen, dan snap ik als Hollander niet dat we niet allemaal al lang zijn begonnen met het hergebruik van hout. Er wordt zo onvoorstelbaar veel weggegooid. En waar wij naar kijken, dat is eigenlijk geen hout. Maar je moet je realiseren dat waar je naar kijkt, de CO2 is van onze overgrootouders. De kacheltjes die gestookt zijn 150 jaar terug, die CO2 die is opgegeten door de bomen. En daar maken wij nu tafels van. En dat kunnen we natuurlijk wel als biomassa verbranden. Maar dan wordt het weer CO2 en 10 minuten stroom uit het stopcontact. En dat is, we hebben al zo genoeg CO2. Dus laten we het maar heel zuinig en anders gaan aanpakken.
So thank you for all the presentations. My name is Eline Ghysels. I'm a project manager at POM Limburg, one of the project partners in the Wanderful.stream project. For those who don't know POM Limburg, POM is a provincial economic development agency responsible for the strategic economic development for the province of Limburg in Belgium. I'll take some time now with everybody to address the questions that popped up in the Q&A box. Maybe some questions first for Lasse from Unilin. Dave had a question for you. Can you also recycle kitchens which are older than 10 years where PVC edging bands were used? And is it possible to sell these materials back to, for example, Unilin?
Yeah, so one of the first steps in our recycling process is the shredding. And after that, we have the separation system where we can separate the plastics from the wood. So an ABS edging band wouldn't be a problem. And today we also, we do pay for good quality waste wood. So depending on the quality that arrives at our sites, we pay a different fee. If it's the lowest quality and we can't reuse it, you'll have to pay because we'll have to incinerate it, and that's not free either. But definitely, old kitchens shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thanks, Lasse. Maybe another question from Richard Laroy. He says Unilin is looking in direction of cradle to cradle, and new developments or types of glue can contribute to get certificated. And replacing resources also can bring savings or higher quality products. And what is the main reason for you, Lasse, to go for cradle to cradle?
Well, we've looked at many different options. Well, maybe first of all, why do we want to pursue any certification at all related to sustainability? Well, we really feel every day that the market is more and more demanding this. Sustainability is becoming a hot topic, especially in the Netherlands. There are important pushes from there out, but also in France more and more, and in Belgium as well. We see that the market is moving in this direction because the customers simply want it. And I think, and we think also in our company, that claiming things yourselves is nice, but an independent certificate like the 100% recycled from Herso, the certificate by FSC, is much more valuable than self-made claims. So we started looking at different sustainability schemes, at certifications that we could get, which might be challenging because we don't want to get a certificate that everyone can have tomorrow. And we finally came to Cradle to Cradle, and we thought, okay, this is an interesting certificate that could have a match with us, also because we recycle wood, we recycle waste wood. So the Cradle to Cradle philosophy is already in our approach. But there are, of course, still other challenges. Cradle to Cradle is also about material health, about emissions to water, to air, to soil, about human rights, and so on. So it's a very valuable compass, I think, to help us make more sustainable decisions and to ingrain this in our day-to-day decision making. So that's why we went with Cradle to Cradle.
Okay, thanks, Lasse. Then maybe some questions for Tom. Tom, what about using wood again into nature, and maybe recycling should be kept for technical materials, and that wood as natural material should be composted as last cascade option? And what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it depends a bit on what you consider should be composted. Part of the leftovers of the forestry industry, for example, is already going towards composting, but also towards bedding for animals, and that ends up for composting. And for soil improvers, things like this. Of course, if you then mean afterwards, then post-consumer waste like Class A type of wood, which is now used mainly and recovered, I think, by Unilin and Unilin and companies for making wood panels. If you would say, oh, we will shred this and we will drop them back into the forest, okay, this will give the nutrient back to the forest, but of course you then have a lack of materials for panel production, I assume. So this poses new problems. So I don't know if that's a solution. Maybe for the leftovers of the forestry, but this is already done in a big way, I think. But for Class A post-consumer wood, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Maybe another question for you, Tom. Unfortunately, we see that the price of wood, is increasing, and that lots of companies get demotivated to use wood and use instead products that are not environment friendly. What is your opinion, and how can we try to find a solution for this?
I think this is not a problem as such, because I think also Rik mentioned this, prices are going up. This will promote and stimulate reuse of wood that is at this moment a lot of it is lost. For example, if during demolition you could actually make the incentive to actually recover as much as possible to be reused, then this is not an issue. Then this will, prices going up will only stimulate this, I guess.
And stimulate innovations on this. Okay. Thank you. Maybe some questions for Rik. Richard would like to hear how certification of your product work and your products work, and do your products need CE marks or EPD, and how do you arrange that? I think you're still muted, Rik. If you can turn on your... Yeah, great, thanks.
Now it's on. Yeah, it was quite a challenge. We've worked about 4 years on that, because FSC actually didn't want to certify waste wood, and it's very difficult to track the wood. So we made an appointment, and we photograph any piece of wood coming in. So we even bought ourselves a large computer for storing an enormous amount of pictures, because we've got to take pictures on the front, sides, top, the wood species, the numbers, the cubic meters, etc., etc. And it's only wood that's already used. So I've also got industrial waste, but that's not counted for FSC. Because they've got a strange idea that someone can produce wood for me. I get it for free, and I can't believe that anyone in Holland would cut off pieces of wood for me for free. But that's the idea behind it. So, well, we gained the FSC 3 years ago, and it really goes well. We had an international audit last year, and they need to certify us with how do you say it in English? With a social distance. They are not allowed to get any cakes or smokes or drinks from us, and they need to certify us emotionally stable. But they were always dancing, because those guys normally only come in firms where they get in large trees which are cut, and we don't have any trees. We only have got leftovers. And old tables, old cupboards, and they say, well, it is possible, and it is. So it's not difficult, but you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with a lot of things, of course. But having a company without knowing what your profit is, that's very hard to explain to your wife. So yeah. Sometimes we do things that cost money, but then we've got beautiful wood which we can salvage and we can reuse again. And if you take a square meter price, yeah, that's expensive. But if I cut them in pieces and I make small pictures in 100 tables, it's worth it, because everybody says, well, how did they make that? Who made it? How did they make it? And that's worth it.
Okay, it's very interesting. I'm very surprised to see how everything is so evident for you in recycling wood, but there must be some challenges, right? I'm wondering if you encounter some challenges, and what your biggest challenges are in the reuse of wood.
The biggest challenge is my government, because I've been plundering the environmental streets here in Holland, which is not allowed. According to the Dutch law, anything that you bring as waste needs to be demolished and burned. That's what the law says. And there was one guy working over there. He is 2 years from his pension at the moment. And if we were caught, he would have lost his pension and his job, and probably would have been fined by the government. But he said, well, we're gonna start working on the enormous amount of wood that's burned down every day. We kept the bookkeeping, so we knew exactly what we took from there. And after a year, we went to the mayor, and I made a table for her as a present, and it was signed by the guys who took the wood out of the containers. There were even 2 guys among them who couldn't write, so they wrote their signature under the table, and I brought the table. And she said, that's a wonderful table. I want another 50 in the whole community here. What does it cost? I said, I don't know. My foreman is on holiday now. I can't tell you, but I need to know now. So, well, I'll collect some wood in the coming years, and you pay me with wood. So from then on, it's official, and we've got 7 guys who are full-time urban miners and collect the wood. So every week I've got to pick up a container with about 3 or 4 cubic meters of oak, mainly oak, because Brabant is an oak country. And we manufactured the furniture for the, you can hear them at the moment here above me, the new JSF fighter plane, which has very special bunkers. That's the only 2 bunkers in the world with windows. You can't believe it, but it's true. And we made the tables for that bunkers, and it's 100% waste. At the same time, we manufactured tables for the taxis, and we had a long training with the taxes. They wanted to know how they could collect waste, etc., etc., etc. And at the moment they had to decide what model, what material, the guy took his wife to us, and his wife said, I don't like waste, I like oak and ash more. So from that moment on, we deliver virgin oak tables over there. And with the rising of the virgin materials in price, those tables are already 200 euros more expensive than the tables made from 100% waste. So we can already see there's a tipping point, and that will be enormously increasing in the coming time, because I think it's not going to stay with 40 or 50% in raised prices for wood. I think we know now it is going to be the same for aluminium, for steel, for electronic company parts, for ball bearings, for anything in this world. And we've flipped over all the mountains in this world to collect all the materials that is in it, but there's no additional material anymore in the earth, or very difficult to reach. So we got to do it with the materials we have, and we got to be very, very careful with that, because we've got 9 billion kids coming up in the coming 10 years, and a tree needs 100 to 150 years to grow. So we need to make a new balance. Mm-hmm. And in Holland, it's very normal to change your complete interior every 5 or 10 years, which is ridiculous, of course. And my grandfather bought himself an interior when he got married, and he used it all his life. There are still fights going on over that furniture. Yeah. And I have got friends, and they've had already 8 or 9 completely new interiors in the meantime. And we need to realize that that's not normal. We are too rich. And the other side of the world, they don't even have money for buying a piece of wood to make clocks out, or shoes, or a chair, or a simple table. And we are stealing the trees around them. They're going on a boat for 40 euros a cubic meter. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the tree gets in Rotterdam, it's 1800 euros a cubic meter. So we better say, well, why don't those people make half a product for us? So they make a little bit more money to make a living, and they don't get in a boat to get to Europe to try to get a job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's really a need for a shift in mentality. And Danny, one of the participants, he says like there should be a shift in the vision about circular economy, and how could we try to address this also already at preschooler age, and how can we learn young children how to change this mentality? And I think Sara would like to answer live. I don't know, Stijn, if you can give her the word. Oh, Sara's there. Go ahead, Sara.
Yes, thank you for this question. It's just a small part of the answer, but in the project, for example, we are working with secondary schools and also the higher education institutions in our region, because of course the youth is the future, and we need to educate them and work together with them on circular economy. So we have innovation tracks with professional designers and technology and business experts, but we also have innovation tracks where the students do part of the research and go to develop a part of a prototype, just to make them aware of all the possibilities of circular economy, and also to show them that solutions are possible. We have to be innovative, and that pupils and students can participate and act themselves. So I know this is only a very small part, of course, of the solution, and it needs to go wider. But this is what we are doing with the project.
Yeah, and we need to be aware of the youth, because we've got a lot of youngsters and they are so extreme in their thinking. They don't want anything if it's not vegan, and they want something that's produced in a normal way, and they are willing to pay for that, and they're already coming onto the market, and I don't think the market has noticed them already, but it's that they're coming in large numbers, I can tell you.
So it's good that we will be prepared then. That we have to be prepared. No, that's a good point, Rik. Thank you. There is another question for Tom from Richard. What will be the future for wood dust? And will it be possible to use it in biocomposites? What's the general volume of wood dust?
Ooh, good question. As I mentioned before, I'm not a specialist, but I encountered wood dust in my literature analysis, and it is indeed a problem at the moment, because at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the other speakers, it's mainly burned for energy recovery, but they are using it as well to absorb, for example, in the cement industry, to absorb a different kind of liquid chemicals, but then eventually it's also co-burned in their cement oven.
Yeah, and we used sawdust together with Rob van Kaathoven. He was a specialist in it. He mixed it with old cookies, old bitter lemon that's not sold at the end of the summer. Anything containing sugar, because wood contains a lot of sugar. And he brought it to Biddinghuizen. They've got large tanks over there, and they put bacteria in it, and they got industrial alcohol out of it, and the remains of that were mixed with yeah, I don't know how to call it in English, the GFT waste. It's waste which is from groceries or apples or whatever. And he's got a patent for making catbox filling, which is biological. You can use it for 5 weeks if you take out the shit, and you don't smell it, because it's the urine is immediately broken down and there's no smell coming off, and you can just throw it in your green box. But in the last Dutch Design Week, we spoke to a professor, and she said we're doing it wrong. What we should do is make milk acid out of it, and that's to be used as a basis for bioplastics. So you can make your plastics out of your wood dust.
Indeed, that was my next thing. I think chemical recycling is a good option for wood dust, because it is already that fine that fermentation or other processes to extract the chemicals from it, like lactic acid for PLA production, would be an interesting way to go. In terms of volumes, I have no idea what kind of volumes wood dust there are in.
Okay. There's another question for Rik that came in. Let me check. Rik, do you work with LCA? I'm not familiar with it, but is it too complex for production?
No, we are part of the Urban Mining Collective in Holland, and one of the guys in the Urban Mining Collective is Montaigne, and Montaigne has got the firm Niebe, which produces LCAs, and LCAs is actually the sum from your footprint. So we just finished them, and it's a lot of work, because you got to calculate anything. How much coffee do you drink? What kind of car do you use for your transport? What kind of chemicals do you use in your factory? Do you have renewed energy, etc., etc., etc.? And that's also very important if you are going to deliver to people who build BREEAM buildings, or the government because they are going to demand LCAs in the near future. And I hope it's going to be soon going to have carbon dioxide tax. And I think that is going to change a lot of things. But it's part of the game.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for your answers, Rik, and all the other speakers. I don't see any other questions. If someone has other questions, you can still put them in the Q&A. If not, I think we can end this webinar.
I have a question, Eline.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Maybe for the other speakers, something I've raised in my talk about the biomass plants and the subsidies and the big difference between supply and demand in the coming years. Maybe Lasse and Rik can comment on this. What's your position on this? Can you see this as an opportunity or as a problem towards circularity in the sector?
Well, I don't believe in subsidies. One thing is, if I would like to have a subsidy for an idea, if I get an idea, I want to do it right away. I don't want to wait until I've got my subsidy. So I already probably have fixed it before I get any money. And I see a lot of companies around me who thrive on subsidies. And it's not about the work. It's making you lazy. And you're depending on it, and that's not what it's meant for. But I think, and Lasse will probably hear it next week. I talked with Michel Baars about it from New Horizon about delivering my sawdust to Unilin, but also talking with DSM about making milk acid out of it, out of the fine stuff. And because we are going to be bigger now, and we probably will have a few containers in every week, and we need to be very careful with using it. It's also FSC waste. That's also worth a lot, but you can also reuse it yourself if you've got enough. And I think we've got several designers in our team. If we are thinking in a good way, and there are a lot of opportunities coming up now, we can use it ourselves. So you don't have to buy it. We've got it. You only need to use it in your network.
Okay, thank you, Rik.
Maybe
Lasse,
to come back on the subsidy story. I think they can be a necessary means to level the playing field today, because we don't have a carbon tax yet, or other taxes on externalities that we cause, problems that we cause to society. So today subsidies are needed to balance this out. I hope as well that in the future we might have a carbon tax that could really level the playing field. But for now, also for our biomass plants, to make sense and to replace natural gas by biomass, we often need subsidies. I mean, that's how it is. Otherwise, we don't survive in the hard competition that we have against our international competitors, who might still be using coal and all other types of fossil fuels. So I think subsidies are important today, but of course also often misused, obviously.
Okay. And what about the effect on the sector, Lasse? Because now demand will be for outreaching the supply in different countries, because also UK and Netherlands, Germany, they all are invested in the biomass plants. So what will happen?
Well, I think it's very important that the subsidies are only granted when it makes sense. Basically, if you can still use the wood, if you can use the wood as it is, like Herso does, please do so. If you have to shred it to make something out of it, bring it to us. If we can't do that and no one else can use the wood as a material, then it makes sense to burn it and to take at least energy out of it, and not just compost it and release the CO2 without taking any energy out of it.
Yeah, composting also making carbon dioxide. So
exactly,
you need to do something else. Yeah.
So we need. I mean, it's a waste of valuable resources, basically.
Yeah, but then you have strict guidelines and regulations on what is recyclable and what is not, right? And that's not that well in place, if I understood correctly. It's different in Holland, it's different in Belgium.
We also get the Paris agreements, and it's not clear what that's going to mean for us, but I think, as I was told, it's going to be twice the lockdown. So we need to be creative to do it in a normal way, in a way we can feel ourselves normal. So we need to change a lot of things. But 2050 is only 1,500 working weeks ahead of us. So it's if you blink with your eyes 3 times, it's 2050, and we're gray and bold, and we start to act now, not in 10 years. And we do act, you do act too, but 99% of the rest of Holland and Belgium is waiting, because they don't know what is going to be needed or to be done or necessary, or
yeah.
But there's a lot of work coming up.
Definitely, and also in the short term, because if we want to,
very short term,
if we want 2050 is close, but 2030 is even closer, and if we want to follow the IPCC pathways to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by about 50% already by 2030. That's huge.
That is really huge.
That's really huge. Also for us as a company which already has a lot of renewable energy and is able to invest and to work on efficiency, etc. I mean, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. And what is, according to you, then the missing link to address this challenge? What is the Is it the government that doesn't?
We need a premier who has got a vision. We need a government who says, this is the direction we're going to start now, and this is the way we're going to do it. But the problem is they want to stay friends with everybody. Tata Steel can keep on producing steel whatever they want. They don't have to pay any tax. They can make any shit they want. You can throw it in the even in the sea if you want it. Go ahead. Now we need to make decisions, and if we don't, then it's not nice to say, but actually we need another flooding. If we got a flooding in Holland, then we realize, we need another delta plan, but then a circular delta plan. But people need to get. We're having a time in which we hadn't had any war in 80 years. We didn't have any flooding in the last 50 years. So we're getting lazy. We think, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. We're living below sea level, and the sea level is rising. We're not safe. And if we want our kids to have a good future, everyone wants that. But I also want it for the other children at the other side of the world. And we need to balance it out. We mustn't have an industry that's going away from Holland and Belgium to Congo or to wherever, because then they're out of sight and they can do whatever they want, and just bring it over here and indeed work with coal or with whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and next to that, I think, like Richard also puts in the Q&A, research and innovation is also necessary. So I think this webinar has been very inspiring for our participants. So thanks for all the speakers to share those insights. There are some questions from people that want to be in contact with the speakers. So you can just send us an email, and then we will gladly put you in contact with the speakers. Maybe before we end, I would like to invite you to our next webinar, our next masterclass on circular building that will take place next Thursday on the 24th of June. And if you're more interested in information or events regarding circularity, please go and check our website. And then I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon, and I hope you take home plenty of inspiration and new ideas on the circular economy in the wood sector. And thanks, Rik, Lasse, and Tom, for all your interesting insights. Have a nice afternoon.